Thanks everybody for joining today. I appreciate you taking the time to learn about 4 ways to build and deliver services aligned with FinOps principles. As Marie mentioned, I'm Bob Kilbride. I'm head of Channel and Alliances for Ternary, and I'm joined by Michael McDowell, who we all refer affectionately as Mac, and you can as well, who's senior sales engineer. So with that, let me first tell you just a little bit about who Ternary is. And there's 2 things specifically that I want to point out. We're a relatively new company, so we've been around for just about 3 years now. But in that 3 years, we've now accumulated over $7 billion in public cloud spend across GCP, AWS, Azure, and OCI under management. So a significant amount of infrastructure spend under management. And even though we're a relatively small company, we're about 35 employees at this point, we're a group of FinOps experts, both from industry, ISVs, as well as service providers. And among us, we have over 100 years of combined FinOps experience. So what that means is with our expertise, with the experience that we have with Ternary and cloud cost management, and with our MSP product and program, we can enable you as a cloud service provider and a cloud solutions provider to, number one, drive profitability and increase margins. If you are currently providing FinOps services or cloud cost management services to your customers and clients, we can help you do this more efficiently and more effectively. If you are not delivering FinOps services today, or if you're new to delivering FinOps or cloud cost management services today, we can, with our product and our program and our expertise, help you build and then deliver these high margin, highly profitable, valuable services. We'll also enable you to help your customers realize that the value of their cloud investments. And here now we're getting into the story around FinOps and the opportunity that it presents to you, where it's going to be more about cloud cost management and saving money in the cloud, and really about getting the true value out of the cloud investments that your clients are making. And then finally, we can enable you as an MSP to establish FinOps best practices and provide FinOps guidance to your clients. And this may be taking over the FinOps management completely for your clients. It could be just working with them on a consultative basis and helping them establish and employ FinOps best practices. And as I've mentioned, this is where we want to drill down, and is the opportunity that FinOps is presenting to you as an MSP. We've, in the past been focused a lot on cost visibility and cost management, where cost visibility is simply understanding who is spending the money and on what. And there's an emphasis on cost transparency. Again, simply a visibility into who's doing the spending and what they're spending it on. And then there's cost management, and cost management is leveraging capabilities from the various cloud providers to identify savings opportunities. So opportunities to right size, for example, or opportunities to commit to a certain amount of spend to take advantage of discounts that the CSPs provide, reserved instances, for example. And the emphasis there is simply on reducing cloud spend. So these are important and practical goals. However, they tend to be very siloed. I'm looking to save cost within only the infrastructure I manage, or I am the finance person and that's all I care about is savings costs. And they tend to be very reactive, where, hey, I've seen this spike in cost and I need some immediate visibility into that. Where FinOps allows you to be more collaborative and proactive. FinOps is comprehensive across the entire business organization. So technical, finance, product, development. It is pervasive across the entire organization. That is one of the basic structures of FinOps. And the emphasis is on maximizing the business value of the cloud. So focusing on the value that the organization is getting from their cloud investments. And it's a much more powerful conversation because, again, it's across an entire organization. And it's much more strategic because it gets to the heart of why these organizations are investing in the cloud. And that's for obviously growth and efficiencies and for competitive differentiation. So cost visibility and cost management are still important, but they are part of FinOps. And organizations today want to focus on FinOps. If you look at the most recent state of FinOps data from the FinOps Foundation. One of the things that was pointed out was key priorities for organizations in various stages of cloud adoption. And for organizations that have $15 million to $100 million in annual cloud spend, the most important priority cited was reducing waste or unused resources. And this one is quite common. It actually moved up in the list a bit this year, and that's no surprise given the cost of money. So every organization wants to have a conversation. They all want to find ways to reduce waste and identify unused resources. But if you look down at the bottom here, 40% of organizations are looking to adopt FinOps. So what that tells us is, yes, they want to reduce spend. They want to do these other things like manage their commitment and forecast spend accurately. But what a large percentage of them are looking for is help with adopting FinOps and employing the FinOps framework in their organization. And again, that presents an enormous opportunity for MSPs. So your clients, your customers, your prospects, they're looking for this type of help. And they're experiencing pain when it comes to adopting FinOps as well. The FinOps framework includes six what they call FinOps principles. And these FinOps principles are considered North Star goals, where they're all important. It's not a recipe. It's not six separate steps. It's six particular areas where organizations can focus on to improve their FinOps strategy. And these principles often look like pain points or business challenges for the organization. And having a conversation framed by these principles can often unlock opportunities, areas of focus for you as the service provider for your clients who are looking to adopt FinOps. I call it becoming more prescriptive, having a conversation of around what the client or customer is looking to do in terms of FinOps adoption, and then focusing on those particular areas. Now, today we're going to show you the Ternary platform. Mac is going to take you through, several areas of the platform to identify the opportunity here. But this doesn't necessarily apply only to Ternary. This is something that you should be thinking about and talking to your customers about in general. We're going to point out where the Ternary platform and the Ternary program can help you take advantage of these opportunities. For example, these are four of the principles from the FinOps organization. Everyone takes ownership for their cloud usage. So driving accountability for usage and cost across an entire organization. And this might be a goal for your customers, but they're having difficulty from the engineering group taking accountability for the usage and cost. It's a common problem where a development organization will say, "Hey, I'm working on making the best product that I can. I can't be focused on the cost of the resources." It's a common struggle among organizations getting each group to take accountability. Teams need to collaborate. So, we talked about FinOps and how it's across an entire organization, finance, technology, product, and business. And these teams are often siloed. These teams often don't have the ability to talk and communicate effectively about cloud usage and cost. So helping them collaborate, helping them communicate can be tremendous value. Another principle is taking advantage of the variable cost model of the cloud. Of course, public cloud, this is one of the main advantages is the variable cost model and the flexibility. Of course, with that variable cost model, with that flexibility comes the risk of spending a lot more than you need to on your public cloud. So what these organizations need to do is continuously optimize environments. Cloud cost savings is not once a week or once a month or once a quarter exercise. You don't provide a cloud cost management service and say, "I'm going to every month go into your environment and look for ways to save money and make sure that you're optimized." It's a continuous process that needs to be looked at constantly. And then finally, another principle is FinOps data should be accessible and timely. So providing real-time cost reporting and analysis to those who need it when they need it. So this is reporting and visibility and dashboards, but not reporting and visibility at, once a week, not reporting and visibility, simply reports that an organization or someone in an organization subscribes to. This is reports, visibility, reporting that anyone in the organization can get at any time and be sure that it's accurate and up to date. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mac, and what he'll do is he'll take you through the Ternary platform and show you how it applies to the opportunity for you as it relates to each one of these principles.
Thanks, Bob. All right, give me a second to switch screens here. And thumbs up if I'm showing the right screen. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the Ternary platform as it relates to the four use cases that Bob brought up. So starting off with everyone takes environment, takes ownership of their costs. Within the Ternary platform, we want to bring in all of that information into one common cost model. So if you are operating across multiple clouds, we're going to focus primarily on GCP and AWS in this particular example. You want to be able to have a common cost model across that. You don't want to have to dive into like an Azure billing data to answer one question or a portion of a question, then pivot over to the curve file from AWS or the billing export from GCP to get a complete picture. We are providing that capability. By the way, right now this demo environment covers AWS, Azure, and GCP. We also can take in Snowflake cost data, Ali Cloud, and Oracle Cloud data as well. Right, so one unified cost model to see across all of them. And then being able to have labeling across that within the platform. So not relying on DevOps to label everything correctly at the outset. understanding that the financial reporting aspect in FinOps oftentimes isn't really well addressed by the kinds of labeling and tagging that are going on in the development side of the house. So it's great that they're labeling things for what can be turned off on the weekends or what can burst or what belongs to which cluster. That doesn't help me on the finance side. What I need to see is what are the environments and the applications that we're running and be able to zoom in on that data that makes sense. Now, when we talk about zooming in on data, we want to be able to do this in a persona-based way. So the capability within Ternary that really helps do this is in two parts. I'll show you the custom labels in just a second. But being able to provide everyone sort of a bespoke experience as they land in the solution, being able to show them the things that matter to them. So in this case, if I have, the different team leaders, I want to be able to provide them all with sort of a common understanding on a daily basis of what their costs are. So overall, we're spending $3.5 million a month on the cloud. John's responsible for 600,000 of that, right? And you can see in this case, it filtered right down to the application he supports. It's filtered down to the services that his applications use. It's focused in on the things that John is responsible for, and right up the row from him, or on a different team, you could say, I want to see what the individual in a different team sees. So what's Tal's contribution to the cloud? Different application, different cuts. The goal being that the visualization is independent of the persona who's using it, but it's joined together in a way that when someone lands in Ternary looking to answer questions about cloud costs, it's focused on their specific needs. All right. Now, how do we do that? We're doing that with a technique called custom labels. I hinted at it just a second ago, but let me show you how it works. It's a very simple model that allows the data to come in with whatever native labeling and tagging it already has. So we will see that when we bring in the billing data, we'll have all of those native labels and tags in the data, but we can augment that, add to it, ignore it completely, redesign it for the financial use case. So here's what happens. The DevOps team is out there, they're labeling things the way that make sense to them. So maybe created by as a way that they keep track of which resources they're responsible for. Finance wants to see things by business unit, team, environment. This is the way they want to report the data, but this is the way it comes into them. So one of the chief use cases around, FinOps is being able to articulate in the data the dimensions that make sense to the business. And that's really what we're doing over here. Key differentiator for Ternary is that what we're able to do is do this in real time. You can use these right away. It doesn't require a full reprocess of the data. It's designed that way on purpose because the other solutions don't operate that way. So just kind of knocking down the first category that Bob put up there in terms of everyone taking ownership, being able to label the data correctly, being able to provide a bespoke experience for everyone using the solution, allowing them to interact with the data in a way that's natural for them so that they can see the information they need to see, add questions to it, drill down on it, get more details anytime they need to. It's a consumer grade UI that's sort of hiding and smoothing out all of the complexities of the underlying data. Right? So I'm going to take pause there, and we're going to move on to our second primary use case, which is teams need to collaborate. When we're talking about collaboration, oftentimes it's around finding and surfacing savings recommendations and then being able to put those recommendations into a pipeline where they can actually be executed against. I'm going to start off with compute because that's a category everybody understands natively. We have this capability both for AWS and GCP. We can look in this case for all of the different compute instance types that we're using and find out what's our use by a particular type of usage, what's our use by family, lots of information in this case at the individual resource level, right down to an understanding. And if I want to understand all of my N1 usage in this case, I can get right down to the individual instances themselves, should I need to. But here's where it gets interesting. There are savings here. And I want to be able to zoom in on those savings. So right within the family itself, we'll be able to show you the optimizations available. And in this case, those recommendations could be anything from just turn it off, it's not doing anything, to it's an instance group that's oversized, to I have some unattached storage or a right sizing recommendation. All of these recommendations are being presented within the technology family themselves. Because obviously optimizations for compute are going to be different from database or storage. But here's where the collaboration really kicks in. Is if I have a recommendation that I think is a good idea, in this case, I have a right sizing recommendation. It's saying going from a high MEM 96 to a high MEM 32, gives you the details around that. As a financial reporter, as a FinOps professional, I know that savings is something that I want to orient toward, but I don't know the architecture or the implications of making this change. So I don't want to, first of all, I would not want to have a button here that says just change this instance type. That would be a terrible idea. But let's just say I want to make this something that I want to put in front of the engineers, right? So can we take this as an accepted change? And then I want to create a case around this, right? So confirm that. And now I can put details around this, like, can we do this? And put in the savings recommendation, $2,000 of savings. So all this information that I can put in here, it's going to be pre-populated with what Ternary has already discovered. But here's the key is I can put it in front of engineers in a way that they will see it. I want to place this in front of my engineering team. What's one way to do that? Drop it into Jira Cloud, right? So I'm not going to actually do this because I've already created this case. I'm going to show you what the case looks like. So cases in this case are going to be actions which are pending. It could be something that is an anomaly detection. It could be something that is a resource change. It could be anything that we want to be able to zoom in on. In this case, I'll pick this one. If I have Kubernetes savings, I have these as well. But I wanted to show you, so the recommendation that we started off from is on the left-hand side here. When we do a integration with Jira, now we are linking the two together. So I have a ticket that's being tracked on the Jira side. I have a ternary case. It's all around savings. But this is where we can start getting collaboration between the teams. Engineering is working in a interface and a language and a prioritization schema that they're used to. They can move things around and do reassignments on their side. Meanwhile, I'm tracking it internally so I can see that information back and forth. And the goal being that, the FinOps team is working with internally, and then the engineering team is working on the Jira side, but the two are tracking the same issue. And when we get to a point where we actually have made a change, we can actually show that the savings that is being realized is being accumulated. So as I make changes, you can see this little tracker here that's saying $7,800 of the $165 worth of $165,000 worth of recommendations has been acted upon. And as we do more actions, we will move things further and further along. And if we do have pending cases, you can see it's actually referencing that this has a pending case associated with it, so we don't have to kick one off again. Right? So we're on teams need to collaborate. It's about finding savings opportunities, surfacing those to the right people, getting them into the right people's hands so that they can act on them and actually move them from this, basically to-do bucket into the done bucket. Okay. Moving on, topic 3, we're talking about taking advantage of variable costs. Variable costs are going to be things like savings plans and RIs. So we're doing this both for AWS and for GCP. I'll start with GCP. I'll pivot over to AWS next. When we're talking about looking for better rates, it's going to be around committed use discounts in the case of GCP or RIs and savings plans in the case of AWS. If I want to zoom in on the use case, there's a lot of savings available, but in general, you don't want to consider all of them at once. So if I just talk about, let's just zoom in on the compute engine use case. I want to turn the rest of these guys off, but you can see there's lots of different opportunities for us to save here. But if I just say, let's take a look at what my savings available for just compute will be. You can see in this case, it's actually got the math already done for us. So it's saying there's a bunch of coverable cost that doesn't have an existing reservation. And now I can start asking questions about, of the existing stuff that I have, what might I add to it? Now, there's an interesting little yield sign you're going to see here. This is really important, and this is also something unique with Ternary. We could reserve a whole bunch of compute instances. You can see in this case, it's saying there's $55,000 worth of savings if I make this recommendation or take this recommendation down. But there's also right-sizing opportunities here as well. So rather than just throwing more money into the system, I could actually right-size the instance and probably get both the savings from the right size action and the savings from the CUD following. So when we see situations where there is a collision, if you will, or there's overlap, right size first, then reserve, right? So that's taking us directly into that conversation. But just for the sake of argument, if I wanted to put in these choices, I can say I'd like to add these into my mix, and what you'll notice is above, what it's doing is changing the results to say, if I start adding in the different components here, these are going to be the different, these are the choices I have, and I can build a plan based on what our recommendations are showing. All right. Similarly, on the AWS front, we're going to pivot a little bit into the RI conversation. Don't worry about this. This is just saying that we haven't used up all our RIs for today yet, or savings plans for today. Currently, we have a similar idea. We have covered capacity versus non-covered capacity. We've got a lot of room to grow here, only 40% covered. We can understand both savings plans and RIs. So if I wanted to focus just on savings plans, you notice our entire inventory already is savings plans, but I could say, what are we doing for RIs? Well, we don't have any, so that's how it's basically showing no savings there. First question when you're dealing with RIs is, where's the benefit going? So here we can see where the benefit of the RI or savings plan in this case is going. We can zoom in on this particular savings plan and see the details of that. So there's lots of information about which instances are benefiting from which savings plans. It's difficult to track, but we're keeping track of that. But we get to the recommendation side. Now we can ask the question, what if I just extend another savings plan on top of what I have? So obviously we've already done the math to optimize the savings plan on top of that. Or if I wanted to go with a blended plan, I can throw in reserved instances on top. So the savings plan kicks in first, and then I can start working on the reservations on top of that. So I can basically build a plan over time, even with the point of putting in options like only show me things that save, 20% or more, only show me things I'm going to use 100% of. So you can actually influence the model to have it sort of optimized to a particular goal, not necessarily just present you with everything. All right. Okay. So point three, we are now looking at, so that was taking advantage of a variable cost, and now getting into the FinOps last topic, being able to be accurate and timely. I'm going to zoom in on two use cases here, specifically on alerting. So when we talk about alerting, there's two types of alerts that the Ternary is tracking. There's going to be alerts based on machine learning, and there's going to be alerts based on human-tuned rules. And the two come together naturally. I'll show you how that works. So what's happening within Ternary is every time we read into building set of data, we immediately analyze it for changes in patterns. In this case, the changes in patterns we're looking at are going to be like the cost of a particular service within a particular account. So that's what the ML does. It's very good at recognizing changes in patterns. And now that I've got this understanding, in this case, it's saying that network spend in that project or account is only normally $300. Suddenly it jumped up to 2,000. Could be perfectly normal business operations. I don't know that, but the ML said, this is not something I normally see. Right? Similarly, other patterns are going to show up throughout the data. Learn over time what those normal behaviors are looking like. By the way, is my audio cutting in and out? Because it just showed my microphone switching. Hopefully it's fine. All right, so ML is doing what it's doing. It's finding disruptions in the spending patterns and telling us about it. Now, what we can do as humans is we can contextualize that. So when I do see something that comes in, for example, I have a production alert. Let me take a look at this. I have an AI detection alert. I can say what's important. Don't just tell me about every, $50 or $60 or $70 change in production. We're spending $3.5 million. I don't care about all the little stuff. Tell me about the big stuff. Only tell me if an AI detection exceeds 10% of my spend in the production accounts per day. So I can set filters on which accounts that relates to. I can say which project names, etc. And furthermore, I can add more detail around that. So the first AI detection will come up with is it'll just say, hey, you've got a jump in cost in this project. Well, what team, what business unit, what product was that associated with? So all these additional declarations I can put in to further clarify what that anomaly relates to. All right. So I don't have to sign into Ternary to say, oh, what was that spike? I got to zoom in on these attributes. All these attributes are part of the body of the evidence it finds. All right. Okay. So the anomaly detection, machine learning, producing an output, we filter that output with human tuned rules. But what if I don't want AI as part of the mix at all? Super. Let's just turn that off. So I can also have a non-machine learning detection that is based on either a threshold cost or a threshold percentage. So it's really a yes and. Do we have ML? Yes. Can I build human tuned rules? Yes. Do they both come into the same pipeline and produce anomalies? Yes. So I can have the things I specifically set that I want to look for, and I can also say, let ML do its thing with filters and some guidelines, some guardrails as to what it's going to produce. Okay. Now, when a detection happens, where does it go? Well, it'll notify the individuals who are subscribed to that alert, but it will also communicate with Slack. We find that for engineers, being able to put that information in front of them in a meaningful, frictionless way is important. So if I wanted to send somebody, like there's a savings opportunity, we can put that into the Slack channel. If I have an anomaly detection, that can be put into the Slack channel. So folks who are responsible from the looking at the actual cost on a real-time basis, this information is going to be fed into them, and they can pick off this list of things that are important for them to see. So you don't have to keep signing into Ternary to look at information. We can produce it and send it to a channel that everyone is subscribed to. All right. Okay. So last bit here, we're going to talk about budgets. So in addition to anomaly detection, we also want to be able to keep folks, in their spending range that they should be. So budgets are going to be typically by team, by project, by product, line of business. And all of those can be designed within Ternary. So we can build very customized boundaries for folks to track their spend against whatever their business has allowed them to spend. By the way, we're not going to be shutting people off. It's not going to say, sorry, you're at your budget. You can't start that new instance. It's not doing that. What it is doing is it is reporting out what it's finding. So in this case, I've got a budget and we're looking at John's projects, so John's accounts, and we're tracking where he is on his particular journey. So he has a $640,000 budget and he's going to come in 99,000 under budget. Congratulations. His budget has been increasing over time as his projects have grown in use. And but it looks like in the last couple of months he's had a couple of overages, but this month it looks like he's just about to finish the month right on target. Right. The budget itself is going to have a growth factor built into it. It will have a focus. So as an individual, you can be notified when you hit certain spending points. So in the case of John, I can subscribe to that level of spend. It will notify at 100% of your projected spend. So if it knows on the 15th of the month, based on the slope we're seeing, you're going to hit your number on the 27th. It'll say that. It'll also give us a 70% warning. And if we ever have a bad day where I go through 5% of my monthly budget in a day, it'll notify then as well. All right. Okay, I think in terms of our overall conversation, we talked about everyone taking ownership with custom labels and scope views. We talked about teams needing to collaborate by showing insights and case management. One thing I do want to point out is we really didn't get into like the different sort of persona-based dashboarding. But if I'm a person who's in finance, I might want to see a completely different layout of data, or if I work in operations. So very broad set of visualizations within the solution. And not only do you have sort of the scoping of the data, but you also have how the initial data is laid out and presented to you. Then we talked about taking advantage of variable costs with reserved instances, savings plans, and CUDs, and then being able to show anomalies and budgets as relates to having the data be accurate and timely. Do you want to talk about the accurate and timely aspect of this? We cannot make the cloud service providers produce billing data faster. That is, we're all in the same boat there. But I do want to point out that as soon as the data is detected to have been updated, as soon as a billing file drops, we will have it in the platform within an hour or so of it being dropped. So we're very quick in terms of our ingest and presentation side, as soon as the billing files are updated by the providers.
Thanks, Mac. That was excellent. So we appreciate your time and attention today. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Marie to wrap up.